Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to our session for the International Day of Action Against Contract Cheating. If you're really hardcore, maybe you attended this morning's session at 8 a.m. in the UK. Maybe you've been attending sessions all day, so welcome again. This session is called How Everyone Can Contribute to Academic Integrity. We're running it as a round table, so we will each contribute with a slot and some suggestions for how everyone can contribute to academic integrity on a small, medium or large scale. And we will end with some Q&A. So first of all, I'd like to introduce everyone who's here and part of this session. I'm Mary Davis. I work at Brookes University in the UK. And with me is Stephen Bunbury. All right. Thanks, Stephen. Do you want to wave again to be on? Okay. So there's Stephen. And also from the UK, Louise Warburton, who's a student at the University of Dundee, UK. Louise, would you like to wave? Hi, Louise. Okay. And with Louise Nicole Garrido from King's College London, UK, also formerly of the University of Dundee, right? Okay, welcome, Nicole. Next up, Jamie Cawthra from Bloomsbury Institute in the UK. So quite a few of us from the UK in this session. Welcome, Jamie. But now changing direction. Next up is Rachel Gorjup from University of Toronto, Canada. And welcome, Rachel. And next, Lucy Puente Cruz from Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. Welcome, Lucy. And finally, Zeenath Reza from University of Wollongong in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Welcome, Zeenath. So as you can see, we're from 4 different parts of the world: UK, Canada, Mexico, and UAE. And in this session, we'll be trying to talk to you about how everyone can contribute to academic integrity, whatever your staff role or student course. So I'm going to talk about teaching. That's my main area of interest with academic integrity. And in terms of a small scale contribution, I think just teaching academic integrity to your own students is a really good place to start. So we've been making some resources. I've been co-leading the faculty planning group for this day of action, and we've made some new resources. One's a list of news reports that are on different areas of academic integrity, different problems. And the suggestion here is that it could be used to discuss with students the impact, the long-term impact in terms of profession and impact on society of people working in professions without genuine qualifications. So that's one idea that you could use in the classroom. Another is to look at our list of open access teaching resources, recommended ones like this one from Texas, which has some videos you could bring to the classroom. You can find these resources on the ICAI website for the International Day of Action, so they are linked in there. Then in terms of a medium scale contribution, what about designing an academic integrity course for students at your institution? So I'm just showing you the one that I've been part of a team of to develop at my institution, Brookes. So I worked with people from the library team, the academic development team, and the tech team, and we produced a course that is now taken by all Brookes University students, lasts about an hour as an online self-study course that students have to take before assessment. So that's a way to contribute at a larger scale level across the institution. But a really large scale contribution could be from working together with other institutions and developing some open access teaching resources. So that's something I've done for a project I'm currently working on and leading for the Quality Assurance Agency, QAA, in the UK. It's called Improving Student Learning by Combining Accessibility, Inclusion with Academic Integrity. And I'm working with a team from Brookes University, Bloomsbury Institute, London, University of Southampton, and University of Westminster. And Jamie and Stephen, who are also in this session, are from Bloomsbury and Westminster, respectively. So you'll be hearing more about this resource, at least from Jamie later. So just a very brief look. These are some of the teaching resources we've developed. There are 10 different resources for students in the form of games, discussions, simulations. The important aspect of them that we've really worked on is trying to make them more inclusive, trying to engage the students who don't normally engage. So that was our focus. And then we've also developed teaching resources for staff to try to help staff to teach in a more inclusive and accessible way. For example, by using our template, and I'll just very quickly show you that. We have this partners template, which is looking at different elements that inform inclusion as a form of a checklist to look against any new resources being developed. So we've made it in the form of questions to think about when staff are developing new teaching resources for academic integrity. So I'm just popping a link into the chat if you would like to look any more at that. And that's the end of my slot on small, medium, and large scale contributions to academic integrity through teaching. So next up, I would like to introduce Stephen Bunbury from the University of Westminster, as I mentioned before, and he's presenting together with Louise Warburton from Dundee and Nicole Garrido from King's College, and they're going to be talking about a student-led project to support academic integrity. Over to you.
Thank you, Mary. I've been introduced, so I'm from the University of Westminster, and I've been co-leading the student group, planning group for this International Day of Action. One of the things we discussed at our board meetings was contributing to academic integrity. We all agreed that student input was very important, and that for this day of the International Day of Action, that we would want some student-led activities. So we spoke to students from various jurisdictions, and we brainstormed ideas, and Louise was part of that group. And we came up with some ideas. And one of the ideas that Louise came up with was an escape room that was originally developed from Nicole and then and Louise, and then it was reworked for this Day of Action by Louise. And we thought this was very important because the theme was to engage everyone. So it's not just academics teaching academic integrity, but it's students looking at the positive aspects of academic integrity too. So the escape room that was delivered earlier focused on the positive aspects of academic integrity. So not just punishing students for doing something wrong, but actually educating students. And that was in the form of a game. And I'll hand over to Louise soon and Nicole to say a bit more about that as well. Now, my experience working with students was that it was useful because academics and students don't often sometimes speak the same language, as in students know how to communicate to students and get other students' engagement. And also as academics, it was a learning process for all of us. So where we think sending an email might be effective, even though we probably know it's not effective, actually social media, Instagram posts, and different social media platforms would draw students or engage students in trying to promote academic integrity. So that was important to us. So in the end, we decided to showcase the escape room and with a demonstration which was recorded earlier today at midday UK time. And what I wanted to do, especially leading on the escape room, was to make sure it was student-led. So I didn't say much apart from introduce it, but let the students talk about how this tool could be used to educate and promote academic integrity. Again, the reason why we wanted this input is that we in a group of academics, we may think it's a good idea, but actually students don't, and that's why students' input is important. And also working collaboratively with students and staff was a learning curve for all of us. So they learn from us, we learn from them. So we're co-creating and trying to bring about change. But enough said from me. I am gonna hand over to Louise and Nicole to really talk about the escape room and any learning from it, and also their experience working with academics in their institution and actually trying to engage students. So without further ado, I hand over to Nicole and Louise.
Yeah, I think maybe it'd be good just sort of in the beginning, Nicole, if you want to talk a little bit about how the idea came up, because it was originally your idea, and then I can go forward from that with where it's going now. If that works.
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Can everyone hear me okay? Hi, so yeah, I'm Nicole, and I was last year's University of Dundee president for the School of Life Sciences. So essentially the idea came about because during one of my meetings that I had with our academic dean, he basically said to me, you know, we're having a huge issue with academic integrity, the cases are rising, it's really not good. And you know, he found that the usual method of sort of having meetings with students about it and introducing it in tutorials and things like that wasn't really working. Students just weren't paying attention, weren't listening. So because International Academic Integrity Day was coming up, he asked if I could just, you know, maybe do a couple of social media posts on our school social media for it. And I thought, you know, I've been a student now for 5 years, and I thought, you know, what our students, we try to get things done as quickly as possible. We want things to be engaging. We like to learn in new ways, and ultimately many students are quite lazy. So I thought, you know, what is the best way that we can, you know, make the information come across without sort of, you know, the information being very overwhelming. And so I came up with an escape room idea. Originally I wanted it to be done in person, sort of set it up on campus, but unfortunately because of COVID and because of the cost, that was not a possibility. So we had a great team, 53 people in the team. I came to the team and I said, look guys, this is the idea I have, can we make this happen? And so we sort of formed groups within the team, and Louise led the technology side of things. And so, yeah, we built the escape room. I'd say like there were a couple of challenges with the escape room originally because, you know, like Stephen said, it was very difficult to not make it completely negative, because obviously we don't want to just showcase like the negative side of things. We also wanted to sort of say why it's good to produce your own work and what benefits that can give you in the future to sort of have that mark on your name on that, you know, thesis or presentation or anything like that. So that was like one of the biggest challenges, and also to actually create puzzles. Believe it or not, that was very challenging, just to think of different puzzles that you can do that weren't just like quizzes, but instead were really interactive, and you know, you had to find this missing piece of the puzzle to then lead to another piece of the puzzle, and then, you know, escape a room essentially. But yeah, that was my role in it. I've now left, I'm at King's College, so I'm very sadly not really part of the project at Dundee anymore, so I'll pass it on to Louise.
So I'll keep it very brief. I'm not sure what the time constraints are, so I'll just sort of build off of like what I said in the previous event of where it's going. As I said before, it was aimed sort of at life science students. I think Nikki also mentioned that. So now we're generalizing it, and we're going to also try and put in some specific questions for different courses as well to help students understand the implications further on in their career. So for things like primary teaching and stuff, and like working with vulnerable people, sort of your responsibility to make sure that you're learning the things that you're supposed to be. And another really big thing that we want to focus on is also showing students what support systems are out there. For example, we have, I think it's a stay on course. We have different support systems within our inquiry centre all over the university. And we don't just want to say, don't do this, this is bad. No, if you're stuck in a situation and you feel like this is your only solution, here is another one. I think that is incredibly important, and it's good to humanize the whole process and take a more holistic approach.
Thank you very much, Louise and Nicole. Great to just have that insight and the student input, and thank you very much for giving up your time on this important day. I'll hand back to Mary.
Thanks a lot, Stephen, and thank you so much, Louise and Nicole. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, who wasn't at the demo earlier, there is a recording to show about the escape room activity. Really innovative and exciting. So next up, we have Jamie Cawthra from Bloomsbury Institute, and Jamie is going to be talking about training new students at Induction. Over to you, Jamie.
Thank you very much, Mary. I hope my slides are coming through all right. So after hearing about something that sounds really fun and interesting, and yeah, we get to now talk about everyone's favorite time of year, which is induction. But I'm going to try and convince you that induction is the time for academic integrity talk to start, particularly if you have a large international cohort or a mixed cohort or cohorts with a lot of widening participation. And that's going to lead me to talk about inclusivity a bit, and also a risk that we face, which is moralizing academic integrity. And as someone who used to research in ethics, I'm always very hesitant to say don't moralize something, but in this case, I will. So it is easy to think that academic integrity is something that applies blanket across the globe, but it doesn't. And hopefully many people here will have experienced that already, particularly in terms of the validity of work which is produced in collaboration with other students, even when that wasn't actually part of the brief, or work that involves copying other pieces, which in a lot of sort of Western universities and higher education is seen as obviously inappropriate, but in other places is less so. So one thing that is a really big risk in that case is that we start to moralize these differences, to see certain standards of academic integrity as better, essentially, than others. A colleague of mine, our head of equality, diversity and inclusion at Bloomsbury Institute, Dr. Nandini Kanu, had a piece recently on Advance HE's blog about welcoming large international cohorts, as we have done recently at Bloomsbury. She writes that in attempting to identify the particular needs of international students, it's important not to fall into an exercise of othering, of trying to draw a divide between the needs of one group, treating them as this sort of homogenous whole, and a different group, a separate but also homogenous whole. She warns us that this approach not only fails to appreciate the various cultures already present in the domestic student body, that is to say, domestic students tend to be a much less homogenous group than we take them to be, but can further perpetuate stereotypes, and through the exoticization of international students, create a sense of segregation. And that can happen both with the students, but also with teaching and professional services staff, a horribly counterproductive result for what's supposed to be the opportunity to share education across cultural divides rather than help reinforce those cultural divides. So this is why I think induction is really the place to go. Our June intake inductions, we have a June intake at Bloomsbury Institute, which is largely composed of students from South Asia. These inductions were really quite severely interrupted when UK Visa and Immigration decided to prioritise Ukrainian visas, which is fair enough, but meant that we had students arriving up to 4 or 5 weeks late into term. Now, one thing that happened following this was the highest rates of contract cheating on our foundation year programme that we'd seen in years. Now, obviously, I don't think this is the only factor playing into this, but nevertheless, the two things happening together struck me. And there is a temptation when we're doing induction to sort of treat academic integrity with sort of a fairly gentle touch. It's something that can scare students quite quickly if we immediately start talking to them about the dangers of academic misconduct. But nevertheless, when we have mixed cohorts of international and national students and all of the diverse sort of subgroups within those two larger groups, induction is our opportunity to set standards early, to actually have a set of guidelines that we can introduce without othering any students by introducing them in a sort of standard and blanket way. So this means that we manage to treat the academic integrity education needs of international students, but also the subgroups of domestic students that we tend to forget exist as well. And for any institute with a large widening participation cohort, it's important to remember that the requirements of academic integrity are often, less clear or less, there's less likelihood that they'll have family members or friends who are able to educate them in this. So this means that what we should be doing is building in inclusivity from the ground up. And as Mary has already suggested, there is an excellent recent QAA project doing just this, which Mary and Stephen are also part of. So Mary's already shared the link to some of the resources that we've prepared, which I think go excellently in inductions. Not only do they actually start setting these clear, consistent ground rules early on, they do so in a way that's interactive and while perhaps not quite as fun as the escape room, hopefully still quite fun. And this leads me to talk about moralizing, or rather not moralizing. So if we do start framing academic misconduct as a moral failing, if we start referring to exclusively as sort of cheating, lying, all these negative strident terms, then we risk the kind of cultural imperialism that Kano is warning us about. And this can actually lead very early on to international students feeling sort of targeted, perhaps even profiled by the kinds of academic integrity interventions we're making. Fortunately, there are absolutely loads of non-moral lines of reasoning that we can use to encourage integrity and warn against misconduct. So, for example, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's found that students are much more responsive to these kinds of instructions when they really understand what's going on. So explaining what assessments are for, rather than just assuming that the need for assessments is self-evidently obvious. The fact that assessments support learning, the fact that they demonstrate to us where students are in need of additional support, and how misconduct actually interferes with the goals of assessment from the ground up, I've found to have absolutely terrific results for getting students on board with integrity. And then, of course, there's the dangers, the financial and reputational dangers of contract cheating, including blackmail and extortion. A fairly recent piece by, I think it was Jonathan York and a few others, suggests that upwards of 90% of students aren't aware of the sorts of risks that they take when they commit contract cheating. So these are two excellent non-moralistic routes to go where students don't feel targeted, but are still made aware of the risks of contract cheating early on in the term, when it's sort of giving plenty of time to bed in. So to summarize, early academic integrity interventions are important, and inductions do present an absolutely fantastic opportunity for this. One which, as we discovered, if missed, can result in all kinds of problems, not just those to do with academic misconduct spiking. But we should be mindful of the risks of alienating international students and small subgroups of domestic students while we do so. So we should make sure that these interventions are inclusive and aren't overly moralistic, despite how I certainly find working in academic integrity, I do start taking a fairly moralistic view of the whole thing and thinking that, we are trying to fight for truth. So I'd love to hear about other people's experience of interventions with international students and whether you found similarly that the early stage interventions are the most successful. But that's all from me, and I'll hand back to Mary. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Jamie, for a really thought-provoking contribution there and making a very strong case for more work to go into induction. And also thank you for promoting our resources. Great. So from the UK, let's go to Canada next. So our next contributor is Rachel Gorjup from University of Toronto, Canada, who's going to be talking about her amazing work with social media and students. Over to you, Rachel.
Can you see the slides okay, Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Let me just get organized here. Okay, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Gorjup, and I'm the Academic Appeals and Integrity Coordinator at the University of Toronto on the Mississauga campus. So I'm happy to be here today on the International Day of Action to speak about how everyone can contribute to maintaining and promoting academic integrity. So today I will be discussing how we can involve students in the conversation about academic integrity, and I'm also going to show some examples of what we have done here on the UTM campus. Okay, perfect. Okay, so one of the benefits of involving students in the promotion of academic integrity is being able to have opportunities for peer-to-peer initiatives. So students can speak directly to their peers about academic integrity and their experience with academic misconduct. So students can answer any inquiries that their peers have or direct them to the available resources at the university for further support. So we do believe that students appreciate hearing this information directly from their peers, and it can sometimes be more well received than information that is passed down by a faculty or staff member. Students can also provide insights into the kinds of events and information that they want to see on their campus. So I find that students are constantly being targeted to attend on-campus and virtual events. And so it's important that the events that the Academic Integrity Unit organizes stands out to students and are enjoyable. So involving students also allows us to take a pulse on what is happening on our campus and provide us with information about academic integrity trends that they're seeing or hearing about, social media trends that we may want to use for future campaigns, what merchandise students are enjoying at our events, and what they are learning in their courses about academic integrity and more. Lastly, many students who we work with are involved in several different academic societies and clubs here at UTM. And so including them as part of our team provides a natural link to these groups so we can forge a relationship to organize collaborations in attempts to reach a larger audience. So how can we get students involved in academic integrity promotion? Well, at UTM, one way that we involve students in academic integrity is through our Academic Integrity Unit Student Ambassador Program. So this is a program which we plan to run annually, with 2022 being our second iteration of the program. So in the spring or summer of each year, we put out a call on our social media for second, third, and fourth year students who wish to become AIU student ambassadors. So we are looking for students who are willing to commit 30+ hours throughout the fall and winter academic terms to maintain and promote academic integrity across UTM. So students are asked to submit an application if they are interested, and from these applications, we select students for interviews. So after interviewing our candidates, we select our ambassadors and offer them a volunteer position. Students who successfully serve as ambassadors can receive an entry on their co-curricular record. So this year we did have 25 applicants and we ended up selecting 4 student ambassadors. So our ambassadors attend a detailed training session to equip them with the knowledge and tools needed to help educate their peers about academic integrity and the process of resolving cases of academic misconduct at UTM. So here are some examples of the events that our students have attended. So in September, we attended Eagle Orientation, which is an event that is hosted on campus during orientation week for our incoming first-year students. So this was one of the first opportunities for students to become more familiar with their new campus, connect with faculty, staff, and other students, and discover all of the resources, supports, and activities that are available to them. So at this event, we did a really cool activity. So we made a poster board and we brought sticky notes and markers and asked students, what does academic integrity mean to you? And as you can see from the slide up here, this activity was very successful and we had many students coming to our booth and responding to our question. And we were thrilled by the responses of the first year students, so much so that I wanted to create a social media post so that I could share some of their responses on our page. So this is the post that I created, and I'll flip through a few slides. So it says, we asked UTM, what does academic integrity mean to you? And I was able to scan some of their answers and allow students to read them. So some of them are really great answers. So working to improve your own education, being proud of you and your work, working and learning with an honest mindset, being able to express your own ideas, being responsible for your own learning, being ethical and honest with yourself and others, fairness and equity towards other students, understanding the process of growth, trusting in your own intellectual ability, fairness and understanding, taking accountability and action over your own work and behavior, and creating an equal and fair playing field for education. So I think this activity was a really great way to get our students, especially our first year students, thinking about academic integrity as they enter university. And as you can see, some of the students had very insightful answers about what academic integrity means to them. So I thought that this was a very successful activity. Also in September, our students attended Academic Advocacy Week, which is organized by our student union. So this event was attended by many students on our campus, as you can see from the photo. So at this event, we did bring our poster board with us to continue the conversation, and we handed out lots of our academic integrity unit merch. So our office has ordered small tote bags, highlighters, fidget spinners, tissues, and hand sanitizers to distribute at our events. We found that students have really been enjoying receiving the small tote bags, especially at these events where there's lots of different booths and they're collecting all of these goodies and merchandise, and they really don't have anywhere to put them. So we found that the students really have enjoyed our bags to put all of their goodies that they receive. So our ambassadors wear t-shirts when they attend events to let the other students know that they represent the academic integrity unit and they're available to answer questions about academic integrity. And for these in-person events, we have also created a handout to provide students with more information about academic integrity in our office. And what we made sure to do is when we are giving out these bags, we like to tuck the handout into the bags so that even if the students aren't feeling like talking too much about academic integrity in the moment, they'll take the bag home and hopefully they're looking at that handout at a later time when they are available to put some energy into it. So those are some of our tips for our in-person events. So another way that we have gotten UTM students involved in academic integrity is by running a poster competition. So this poster competition actually took place back in 2020. So our office asked students to create posters on one of the following themes: plagiarism, unauthorized aid, forgery, or cheating. So our office evaluated the posters based on their relevance, visual appeal, and how original the work was. So this was a very successful contest, and we ended up receiving 85 submissions. So we ultimately selected our winners and we gave out 5 prizes that are shown here on the screen. And we do hope to run another poster or meme competition this academic year. And I'm just going to go through and show you some of our 5 finalists. So there's already one here on the screen, and I'll show you the 4 others. So we got some really great submissions. I know it was hard for our team to narrow down the results. But ultimately, these were the ones we chose. With the one on the right, the black and white one, that was our #1 winner. We thought that one was really creative and really well done. So it was great to see what the students can create and what they're thinking about academic integrity. We also just want to briefly touch on our academic integrity sessions that we launched in the winter of 2021 as a way to get students involved in academic integrity while we were working and learning virtually. So our integrity sessions were recurring virtual sessions where we invited students to grab a cup of coffee or tea and chat with the AIU staff and guest speakers on topics related to academic integrity. Usually these sessions were accompanied by an interactive component, such as a Kahoot game or a Jeopardy game. And many of these integrity sessions were done in collaboration with various academic departments, associations, and groups at UTM, including the Student Union and the International Education Center, and also the Center for Student Engagement. So those were great ways to get lots of participants out to these sessions by collaborating with these big groups on campus. So all of our sessions have been very well attended and were well received by our attendees. And I'm just going to finish off by letting you know a little bit more about what we're doing today for the International Day of Action. So just after I wrap up this session, I'm going to head downstairs and we are going to be setting up a table. So we're trying to get students involved in the International Day of Action by hosting a booth in an extremely busy location on campus during lunch hours. So it's a spot with food, lots of tables for students to sit. So we're hoping that there will be lots of students there to come by our booth. And we're going to be asking students to submit their pledges, letting us know why they stand for academic integrity, and offering students who submit a pledge an entry into a raffle for a 1 in 3 chance of winning a $50 Amazon gift card. So this was our social media post highlighting our booth and inviting students to come join us. And here are the 2 pledge forms that we have created. So one is the one on the left is an in-person pledge form that we've printed out a bunch of copies, and we'll get students to fill them out with a marker. And the one on the right is actually one that's created for Instagram stories. So we figure that students could post this template on their stories, write in their pledge and post that on their stories so their friends know that they can post it as well. So that's what I'll be doing this afternoon. That's all that I have today. So my email's on the screen there if you have any questions for us, but I will pass it back to Mary. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. There was a question in the Q&A about whether anyone else had tried to use a poster or meme competition, and that's Claire Jones says, yeah, it's really inspired. Maybe we're going to get some answers among the panel, but your posters there, I think, were absolutely amazing, really powerful. And I wonder, what have you done with the posters? Did you distribute them or put them up anywhere? What actually happened with those?
Yeah, so because it took place in 2020, so it was a time when most things were virtual. We weren't really here on the campus. So I know we posted them on our social media, but we have run different poster competitions in the past, and we still have those posters lined up in our office. So that's a great idea. I'm thinking that now that we're back in person and we're back working in the office, we should be posting these posters on campus, and especially around our office. So we did share them on social media because we were at home, but I'm thinking there's more we can do with them in person now.
Fantastic, Rachel. Well, you really gave us a lot of insight into so many different activities that you're engaged in and promoting academic integrity. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay, I'm going to hand over next to Lucy Puente Cruz from Tec de Monterrey in Mexico. So over to you, Lucy.
Thank you, Mary. I think you can now see my presentation, right? Okay, let's start. Good. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here today to share with you some of the year-round contributions we make at Tec de Monterrey, not only to support the International Day of Action against contract cheating, but also to support academic integrity in general among faculty, students, and staff. I would like to start to talk by talking about a panel with students we have been doing since 2019 to raise awareness about what contract cheating is, what the possible causes can be, and its consequences. These topics were usually brought up by faculty, so in our institution, having students talking about these issues was really a fresh start. In 2019, in the first editions of these panels, each campus organized face-to-face roundtables, but not all the campuses participated. So that's why in 2020, we decided to make a national panel in which high school and undergraduate students from different campuses came to participate. The topic that year was, how do you practice academic integrity? And as you can see, it was not entirely focused on contract cheating because we wanted students to discuss what it meant for them to put the academic integrity principles into practice. They do know what they mean conceptually, but what does it mean to actually live these principles in a daily basis, right, in their academic lives. So that was our first experience in last year in 2021. We had what is the win when you contract cheat, and that time the conversation focused on contract cheating. We tried to changed the topic over the years. And now on October the 20th, that is tomorrow, we will have a panel that we called Do What You Say, the challenge of acting with integrity. And this time we want students to reflect on the challenges they face every day to act with integrity in difficult circumstances and what they can do to study and succeed with integrity. Here on the right is a flyer we have been promoting to get people interested and listening to our students cover these important issues from their point of view, because we usually listen to faculty, but we want to know what they think about it. And some of the questions that we will raise in that panel are, if we all know what integrity is, why is it so difficult to act according to these principles? And here we want students to talk about the challenges they face that I mentioned before, right? And what they do to overcome all of them. And another one, what do you think of the statement, there is more interest in passing the class or subject than in learning? What are the consequences of that approach? Because this is something that is frequent or common to them. So we would like to listen to our high school and undergraduate students to talk about these issues, as I said, from their point of view. And besides the panels that we have already talked about, every year we have a lunch contest to raise awareness on contract cheating, and we try to make it different every year, so every time more students get involved. In 2019, we launched a competition called Integrity Starts With You, and here we ask students to create a poster to express why integrity matters and why it's important to say no to contract cheating. We had more than 450 students enrolled at time and received more than 250 posters with different phrases to reflect on the issue. In 2020, we launched an Instagram stories contest called Live and Promote the Principles of Integrity. And here we ask the students to reflect on the things they do to study with integrity and post it on their Instagram stories using the hashtags IntegridadTech and Excel with Integrity. And we only had 35 phrases posted on Instagram, which were put on voting, and the community voted for the best 3. As we did not get the attention we were looking for in 2020, we changed the dynamic, and in 2021, we launched the contest Give Voice to Academic Integrity. And that time we asked the students to create resources for an advertising campaign that were attractive, but most of all, meaningful to promote academic integrity among their peers, their classmates. We have more than 300 students involved and received more than 100 proposals. So we think it worked, and we were really happy about this experience. And this year, we had a contest called Lights, Camera, Integrity, and we asked students to create an original and funny movie trailer to motivate their classmates to act with integrity, both in their academic life and future professional life, and to avoid contract cheating, of course. And we received about 100 videos of 300 students who participated, approx. So we think this video strategy worked. We will see what we can do next year, right? Because this is something that really was successful among our community. And besides the panels and the contests, there are some other activities that we organize during academic periods to support academic integrity. And I'm pretty sure that you carry out these activities in your universities as well, as I have already seen. And this is a brief summary of the things, other things that we also do. At the beginning of the semester, we have the signing of the honor code. This year, we had the opportunity to do it during High Tech, which is a welcome event for first-year students. And we designed a 10-minute activity to foster reflection among students. First, they watch a 1-minute video, then they discuss a few questions, and then they sign the honor code. Of course, the signing is not mandatory. We want students to sign the honor code because they believe in it and actually wanted to do it. So that's why we designed this activity, in order to get them to think about the issue and want to sign it and commit with the academic integrity principles of our institution. here, another activity that we had is the academic integrity module. And at the beginning of the first semester, high school, undergraduate, and graduate students as well take this module so they can learn about academic integrity program and the strong commitment that our institution has with the principles of academic integrity. This module is on Canvas, and they are invited to sign the honor code here in case they haven't signed it yet. So this is another opportunity we have with our students to get to know what the program is about and the principles we want them to commit with. And also another thing that I would like to share, I would like to show you some of the art we use for the academic integrity campaign, which is addressed to students, and faculty. Both audiences receive emails with these flyers, but they can also see them on social media. We try to send messages of interest, something that catches up what they think attractive, that can make people think about the issue and be present among faculty and students. For example, here we have one flyer that says, use WhatsApp to collaborate, not to cheat, right? This is important. And for faculty, we try to make them be aware of the importance of identify academic misconduct and know what to do once they have identified some of them, right? Because sometimes teachers, but they don't know exactly what to do, or they have questions about it. So, well, this is what I wanted to share with you. Here is my email in case you would like to continue with this conversation and share more experiences among universities. And well, I'll hand it back to you, Mary. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you this information today.
Thanks so much, Lucy. So many great ideas, and you've had so much success as well. I think your numbers of engagement are really impressive. Thank you so much for sharing. So I'm going to hand straight over to Zeenath next. Zeenath, over to you. You're going to be talking about student academic integrity champions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. I guess it's very difficult to go at the end, but it's also exciting because, you know, everybody's kind of set the stage. And as you can see, everyone has talked extensively about students and how, you know, they have, it's so amazing to hear that how they've been center stage in everything that we are doing for academic integrity, because at the end of the day, it is for the students to enhance their learning journey and this whole experience and to enrich it for them. So I think coming from there, because we realized that we needed students to be center stage, just us talking to students doesn't necessarily always work. We are not speaking their language at the end of the day, no matter how cool we think we are or how in tune we are with students, we really aren't. Right, I wish we were, but we aren't. There is that gap, right, of understanding of the way we are speaking, of the way we are approaching concepts and trying to speak to students about it. So we realized that we needed students to be more active, right? So, but we faced challenges even there when we were trying to get students on board. There are things like, you know, peer pressure. It's not cool, really. You know, what are kids going to think I'm uncool, or they're going to judge me somehow if I start becoming a part of this, you know, talking about academic integrity campus. Maybe it's not going to be fun. Sometimes, you know, students are seeing double standards. They see, you know, you telling them about academic integrity, how important it is, but they see some other lecturer not really caring or looking the other way, not detecting and penalizing when they should. So a whole lot of barriers that we faced, and we realized this was going to be really difficult if we just go out and say, okay, we're talking about academic integrity, come on board and, you know, help us. So this is where we call it stealth academic integrity. So we started doing really small things which weren't necessarily about academic integrity, but they were more about the Global Ethics Day, discussing and debating if contract cheating sites or SMLs are really ethical businesses, because they're a business model. They're running like they are a business. They're making money. They've got a demand. They've got a supply. But is it ethical? How are they getting the social license to operate? Right? We put students on one side. We put lecturers on the other side, and then we said, go debate this topic. Right? and it became a hit. The speakers that we got from students weren't necessarily the ones that you always see standing up and doing good talking. They were the naughty ones in the class who usually either sit at the back, or they're most noisy, or they're very distracted on their phones. And these are the ones we brought out and said, hey, you know what? We want you to speak about this topic. I'm sure you have a lot to say. Why don't you go up against the faculty and have this debate? So the debate was such a hit on campus, and everybody was like, okay, wow. So we need to do more of this, right? And then from there, we had students volunteering, coming on board, and trying to help us organize these debates and events on campus. The next year, they said, okay, Zeenath, we need to now do more. What do we do? I was like, you tell me what you want to do. I can tell you a whole lot, but maybe it's better if you guys come up with some ideas. So suddenly they had the autonomy to come up with ideas and organize their own events. So they were setting up committees, and they were coming up with initiatives, and they were drawing more crowd than I ever managed, right? Or the faculty ever managed. The year after that, students got even more involved, and they were like, you know what? We should be studying why this is happening on campus. We should find out why students are doing what they're doing and how they're thinking. And because, Zeenath, you're saying something, but, they're saying something different. We need to figure this out. I was like, that's called research, guys. They're like, okay, so let's go and do some research. Right. And then they were taking the lead on research projects, and we were getting grants to do these, surveys and focus groups. And, we were getting the ethics approvals done. They were like, oh, what is that? So it was a learning process for the students themselves. At the same time, they were the ones disseminating what findings we were getting in their own way. Ultimately, they were publishing as co-authors, first authors, single authors, even in local conferences, in international conferences, including European Network for Academic Integrities Conference, ICI conferences. And we realized that this needed more, right? More structure, more organization, more students. In 2020, in the UAE, a few of us got together and we started the Center for Academic Integrity in the UAE. And we got a student board. The student board started with 6 people. They said, we need more. So now we have an active committee. They had 5 students. Now they have mushroomed to 12 students in the active committee. So altogether, there are like 20 plus students just in this center. It's not just from my institute anymore. It's from different universities, different schools, and they're coming together and they're doing events, not just for their own campuses, but for other campuses. In fact, they introduced something called the Integrity Debate Championship, which we first did that. I was not sure. I was like, guys, I don't know if students are really going to be interested in participating. The first year, we got 18 schools to participate. This year, we had 26 schools that registered and debated. And the debates are mind-blowing. What students bring to the table when they are researching and arguing and are passionate it's a whole different level of, switching on that bulb, so to speak. So, students as champions has really done well for us. This is what we've been doing this week, for instance. They're doing colloquiums, agree or disagree, moving around and finding out if you make a line, who is right, who is wrong, who agrees, disagrees, and ultimately you realize you may have thought something, and then at the end of the discussion, you're in a completely different position with other people you never thought would think the same way that you do. So things like that, sending out, notices and Insta pages and things like that, having like a lot of social media content that they have created that they've been passing around. So ultimately what we realized with, we've got a podcast going, we've got newsletters that go out, we do pledge parties on campuses, we've got ambassador badging ceremonies that's happening across campuses. Over the 7 years, we have had 77 ambassadors, 20 official events and programs, but in between each of these events have had multiple events within them that counted for more than 20,000 unique experiences. It's one of those things where we say we need to explore how do we include students as partners and co-creators in the conversation, not just us throwing content and information and ideas onto them, but getting them to tell us what they want and how they want it. Developing understanding of methods to include these students effectively, not just in the conversation, but even in policies and procedures that campuses are doing on campus, because then they feel important, they feel heard. And that's really crucial in getting that buy-in that we want from students. As you can see, you might see on the left, we've got this triage poster. This was also one of the part of, it was a conclusion to a debate where students said, you know, if somebody does this, that is not the end of the world for the student. That student has to find a safe way to come back, and we need to provide that. So that's the triage clinic that now we have on our campus. We've been running for the last 3 years very successfully. Ultimately, I've kept it short because I think everybody's already said a lot about student champions. You've seen examples with the amazing work Louise and her colleague have done with the escape room. So I think the point is really clear. We need students as champions, and that is the way forward to ensure we've got that campus-wide effort in building a culture of integrity. Thank you so much. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Zeenath. So thanks a lot for sharing the amazing work you're doing as well in Dubai. So we're ready for a few questions. We've got a few minutes left. If anybody would like to post a question in the Q&A or in the chat, I can see there's a hand raised by Liz Bennett. Amanda, is Liz able to speak, or would she need to write a question? Oh, looks as if you can speak, Liz. Go ahead.
I'll unmute. Can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. But it was a question for Zeenath, just the last point that you made there about coming back from contract cheating. I wondered if you could expand a bit on that as to, exactly what you did, what it meant.
So early on, we realized this was like 2017, I think, the couple of cases that we came across. When we spoke to students, they didn't necessarily, it was not a malicious and intentional cheating, if I can define it that way. Sometimes students would come back and say, I know how to do this, but I just don't have the time because I'm the primary caregiver in the family and I'm working 2 jobs just to get the money in. And as you can see, if you tell me right now, I can answer all the questions because I did read through that project to make sure I understood it so that it reflected my thoughts. So when we started having those conversations with students, we realized that we needed them to open up and talk to us so that we could then help kind of guide them on why this was wrong. Right. And what we've realized often happens when a student goes through the disciplinary processes, they're being told they're wrong. They're being shown that, look, this is why you're wrong. And it's very clinical, right? What needs to happen is for students to vent. And then once they've vented and they've kind of calmed down, that's when they're actually in the state where they will listen. And because of that, we created this triage clinic where we have the counselor who comes in and helps us as well. And we listen to the student, then we get them to take it off their chest and why they're frustrated, why this happened. And ultimately, once they've calmed down, then we start talking to them about what is this type of, because it's not just contract cheating. It could be plagiarism. It could be collusion, right? It could be misrepresentation of authorship. So it could be a variety of different kinds of misconducts that has happened. So then we start talking to them about that particular type of misconduct and why it is a misconduct, why it is detracting from their learning experience, why it is unfair to them, why it is unfair to others in their classrooms, why it's unfair to the teacher, the lecturer who has set that assessment. And ultimately, by the end, sometimes it takes 30 minutes for a student. Sometimes it might even take 1.5 hours for a student. But ultimately, what we have seen is they do come out of it going, right, I get it. I realize why. And we think that's a very positive point, because from there, then it's easy to get that student to attend workshops and not just do workshops as a checkbox. Okay, I have to do it because I got a case and I did it. Now I can go forward. But this becomes a learning opportunity for the student to actually understand where they went wrong so they don't repeat it in the future. Liz, hope that answered.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Zeenath, and thanks, Liz, for the question. We're coming to the end, I think, unless anyone would like to make any further comment, question. I think probably we'll need to stop there. Okay, so thanks to everybody. I'm just going to put a link into the International Day of Action page on the ICAI website. You can have a look for more information, resources, etc. there. But yeah, okay, Zeenath would like us all to turn our cameras on. Could everybody who's presenting just turn on cameras for the important social media photograph? Okay.
Thank you, Mary.
That's okay. All right, shall we wave?
Yeah, just one.
Would you like us to
second.
wave? Okay.
Just opening up.
Static wave, probably.
Yes. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Look forward to working with you again and seeing everyone else again, and have a good International Day of Action.